Hey guys, I'm going to continue reading chapter 9. And here we go. It says, Jessie went to walk up the steps. Grump minced her fink. She tossed over her shoulder. Evan threw a marble at her disappearing back, but missed by a mile. Well, he really hadn't been aiming anyway. He just wanted the feeling of throwing something. He'd been having that feeling to throw something for the last 4 days. Grump minced her fink. That was the name of a character he made up when he was 6 and Jessie was 5. That was back when Mom and Dad were fighting a lot, and Jessie and Evan had to get out of the house. They scrambled up the climbing tree. Evan had his branch, and Jessie had hers, and they'd have to wait it out. Sometimes they'd have to wait a long time, and once, when Jessie was thirsty and impatient and cranky, Evan had said, "Be quiet, and I'll tell you the story about Grumpminster Fink." Grumpminster Fink was a man who was cranky and mean and made everyone miserable, but deep down he wanted people to love him. It's just that every time he tried to do something nice, it turned out all wrong. Evan had made up a lot of stories about Mr. Mink in that tree, but after Dad left, there just wasn't any more stories to tell. No one in the world, besides Jessie and Evan, knew about Grumpminster Fink, and Evan hadn't thought about him in years. "Hey," he said sharply. He heard Jessie stop at the top of the steps, but she didn't come down. "Do you want to call this whole thing off?" he asked. "What?" she shouted. This lemonade war," he said. "Call it off?" "Yeah," he said. "Just say nobody wins and no one loses." Jessie walked down the stairs and stood with her arms crossed. Evan looked at her. He missed her. He had spent the whole day, the third to last day before school started, by himself. It stunk. It really stunk. If Jessie had been around and they hadn't been fighting with each other, they could have played air hockey, made pretzels, or built a marble track with twice as many gizmos that launched their marble into the bullseye cup every time. Jessie was very precise. She was good at getting the marble to go in the cup. "What do you say?" he asked. Jessie looked puzzled. "I don't know," she said, frowning. "You see, Megan she..." Elvin felt his face go hot. Megan Moriarty. Every time he thought of her, his throat got all squeezed and scratchy. It was like an allergic reaction he had if he accidentally ate shrimp. "You told Megan Moriarty about everything?" he asked, feeling itchy all over. "No, well, what's everything?" Jessie asked. Evan thought she looked like a fish caught in a net. "You did." And suddenly Evan knew exactly why Jessie had been smiling when she walked in the door, and why she didn't want to call off the war. She had done it again. She figured out some way to show the world just how stupid he was. Like the time he had come home with a 100% on his weekly spelling quiz. The only time he ever gotten 100% and every word right. To find out, Jessie had won a statewide poetry winning contest. He thrown his paper into the trash without even telling his mom. What was the point? Evan didn't know how, but somehow Jessie found a way to earn more than $103. She was going to beat him, and Megan Moriarty knew all about it. And she would tell everyone else, and all the girls would know. Paul would know, and Ryan, and Adam, and Jack. Scott Spencer would know. He'd say, "Can you believe it? He lost to his little sister, the one who's going to be in our class. What a loser." "You know what?" he said, pushing past her. "Forget it. Just forget I said anything. The war is on. O.N. Prepare to die." And we're on chapter 10. It's malicious mischief, and that means the act of purposely destroying the property of someone else's business. Jessie was all in knots. Evan was madder than ever at her, and she couldn't figure out why. He had said, "Do you want to call off the war?" And she had said, "Sure, let's call off the war," or something like that. That's what she meant to say. That's what she wanted to say. But what had she really said? She mentioned Megan. Oh, she almost spilled the beans about Megan giving her $104. But she hadn't. She kept her mouth shut, just in time. Jessie smiled, remembering that. So why had Evan acted like that? What was the matter with him? Jessie lay down on her bed. Their world was a confusing place, and she needed Evan to help her figure it out. If this is what 4th grade was going to be like, she might as well just give up now. And there was something else that was tying her up in knots. that $208. It wasn't really hers. Megan had given it to her to make a donation. She hadn't given it she hadn't given it to Jesse the way Evan's friends had given the money to him. That still made her so mad when she thought about it. Oh, she wanted to get even with him for saying that she didn't have friends. She even thought it looked like she had $208 in her lockbox, but only half of that money was hers. Still, if push came to shove, and she needed it all to win, sure, she'd use it all. This was war. But if she pretended that all the money was hers, hey, what if Evan had more than that? So if she lost, even with Megan's money, gulp. Jessie hadn't thought of that. If she lost, even with $208, if she lost, oh my gosh, winner takes all, she would lose all of Megan's money to Evan. How could Jessie explain that to her friend? You see, I took all the money you earned to help rescue the animals, and I lost it to my brother, who's going to buy an iPod. Megan would hate her. All of the girls who were friends with Megan would hate her. And Evan already hated her. So that was that. Goodbye, 4th grade. She couldn't use Megan's money to try to win the bet. It was too risky. But did she have enough to win on her own? Jessie felt desperation rise in her throat. How much money did Evan have? She had to find out. Jessie tiptoed up to the attic office. She listened at the closed door. Her mom was on the phone. Jessie snuck downstairs. Evan was watching TV in the family room. Like a whisper, she crept back downstairs and into Evan's room. There was a strict rule in the Tresky house. No one was allowed in anyone else's room without an express invitation. That was the term. It meant that Jessie had to say, Evan, can I come into your room? And Evan had to say yes before she could put one toe over the line. So even though Evan's door was open wide, just crossing the threshold was a direct violation of that carried a fine of $1. But that was the least of Jessie's concerns. She snuck over to Evan's bookshelf and picked up a carved cedar box, Evan's chosen souvenir from the family vacation. The orange and red wood of the box had a scene etched into the top, a sailboat sailing past the lighthouse while the gulls flew overhead. The words Bar Harbor, Maine were painted in the sky. The box had brass hinges and a clever latch. What it didn't have was a lock. Jessie flipped open the lid, immediately smelling the spicy, sharp scent of the wood. She couldn't believe her eyes. Her hands started pawing through the bills, dozens of them. There was a 10 and a bunch of 5s and more 1s that she could count. She sat on Evan's bed and quickly sorted out the money. Evan had $103.11. 89 cents less than she had. 89 cents. He could sell one lousy cup of lemonade tomorrow and beat her. And there was nothing she could do about it, because she'd be at the beach. I can't let him win, she thought. I can't. She had gotten to the point where she couldn't even remember what started the whole war. She couldn't remember why it had been so important to win in the first place. Now she just had to win. Jessie messed up the money and stuffed it back into the box. That night in bed, she lay awake trying to think of some way to stop Evan from selling even a single glass. Sometimes in the dark thoughts come. Jessie had a very dark thought. The next morning was Sunday, and the rule in the Tresky house was that everyone could sleep in as long as he or she wanted. But Jessie awoke to the sound of an electric garage door opening. She sat up in bed and checked the clock. 8 a.m. Then she looked out her window, just in time to see Evan pedaling away on his bike. With his backpack on his back, she quickly dressed and hurried down to the kitchen. Her mom was making scrambled eggs and toast. Hi, Jess, want some? She asked, pointing with her spatula at the pan of sizzling eggs. No thanks, said Jessie. I washed your blue bathing suit last night. It's hanging in the basement. What time are the Moriartys picking you up? 9 o'clock, she said. Mom, where did Evan go? He went up to the store to buy some lemonade. Jessie's mom scooped the eggs onto the platter and put the pan in the sink. When she turned on the faucet, the pan hissed like an angry snake. A great cloud of steam puffed into the air and then disappeared. What's going on, Jess? What's with all the lemonade stands and you and Evan fighting? Jessie opened the pantry cupboard and pulled out a box of Kicks. Nothing, she said. She watched the cereal very carefully as she poured. She didn't want to look at her mother's face right then. Mrs. Tresky got the milk out of the refrigerator and put it on the counter next to Jessie's bowl. It doesn't seem like nothing. It seems like there's a lot of bad feeling between the two of you. Jessie poured her milk slowly. Evan's mad at me, and he's going to be a whole lot madder after today, she added in her head. What's he mad about? Mrs. Tresky asked. I don't know. He called me a baby and said I'd ruin everything, and Jessie felt it coming. She tried to hold it back, but she knew it was coming. Her shoulders tightened up, her chest caved in, and her mouth opened in a howl. He says he hates me. Tears poured out of her eyes and dropped onto her cereal bowl. Her nose started to run, and her lips quivered. With every sob, she let out a sound like a tire squealing on a wet road. For the whole time Jessie cried, her mother wrapped her in a hug, and then, like a faucet, it turned off, and Jessie stopped. She told her the truth. She didn't really understand why Evan was so angry. Even before the lemonade war, he was so mad, and Jessie still didn't know why. Are you better? Asked Mrs. Tresky. Not much, said Jessie, and she wiped her nose with a paper napkin and started eating her cereal. It was soggy, but thankfully not salty. Do you think it would be a good idea to find out what he's mad about? Asked Jessie's mom. You're never going to stop being mad at each other until you both understand what the other person is feeling. I guess so, said Jessie. It can be hard sometimes. Sometimes it's even hard to know what you're feeling inside yourself. I mean, how do you feel about him? Asked Mrs. Tresky. Jessie didn't have to think long. All of the insults and anger, the confusion and fighting seemed to converge in a single flash of white-hot feeling. I hate him. I hate him for saying all those mean things and for not letting me play. I hate him for just as much as he hates me, but more. Mrs. Tresky looked sad. Can we have a sit-down about this tonight after you get back from the beach? No, said Jessie, remembering the spit vow. Evan would be so mad if he knew that she had worried Mom with their fighting. And then he'd spill the beans about the terrible things she was about to do. Jessie didn't want her mom knowing anything about that. We'll work it out ourselves, Mom, I promise. Evan and I will talk tonight. I'm sorry I've been working so hard, said Mrs. Tresky. I know it's a lousy end to the summer. It's okay, Mom. You gotta work, right? Yes. No, I don't know. I promise I'll be finished by dinner time tonight. That way we can all go to the fireworks together. Jessie's mom looked out the window. I hope they don't get canceled because of the weather. They're saying scattered thunderstorms this evening. Jessie and her mom finished breakfast without saying much else. I'll clean up, said Jessie. She liked to do dishes, and she wanted to do something nice for her mom. While she cleaned up, she thought about the terrible plan she had come up with last night. It was mean. It was really mean. It was the worst, meanest thing she had ever imagined doing. I'm not going to do it, she decided. I hate him. But I don't hate him that much. She was putting the last glass in the dishwasher when Evan walked in. His backpack was bulging. I thought you were going to the beach for the whole day, he asked. Megan's picking me up in a half hour. She thought she saw Evan stiffen up. Good. What's in the backpack? Not much, he said, dumping out the contents onto the kitchen table. Cans of lemonade mix rolled all over. Jessie tried to count, but there were too many. 15? 20? Holy macaroni, how many cans did you buy? 32. Evan started to stack the cans in a pyramid. But you don't need that much. Even to win, you don't need that much. That's, she did the calculations in her head. That's 256 cups of lemonade. If you sell them at 50 cents a piece, $1. I'm going to charge $1 a piece. Jessie felt like her head was going to explode. You'll never sell all of that, she said. There isn't a neighborhood in town that will buy 256 cups of lemonade in one day. Too much lemonade, not enough thirsty people, she thought. I'm going to roll like an ice cream truck. I'm going to roll like the ice cream truck. I'm going to mix it up all together in a big cooler and wagon it from street to street. The high today is going to be 94 degrees. It might take me all day, but I'll sell every last drop. 256 smackers. And then tonight, Juicy, we can count our earnings. Don't forget, winner takes all. I'm going to stop there until the next time. See you guys.